This is just going to be a whirlwind tour of the interface for Infinitone DMT. In the future, we're going to go through each of these sections in much, much greater detail, but for now, this is just a general overview to get an idea of how everything works together. So the easiest way to get started with Infinitone DMT is simply to explore some presets. We have chords, scales, tunings, and templates are the basic categories at the moment. And you can just go to anything here. Here's some chords. And it loads up the preset. So at the top here is called the active scale window, and you can see which notes are currently being mapped to your keyboard. And here are the scale slots, and you can choose which notes to play. So all you have to do to play a chord is just click on a chord and play a chord. And you can mix and match these different chords however you want to create your own chord progressions. And next we have scales. We have these banks of what we call scale archetypes, and they're just general scale structures, and they come in different harmonic flavors. So here's one. And same thing, you can just click on a scale and play a scale. And there's a whole variety that you can explore. Then there's tunings, and tunings are larger groups of notes. And for example, we have this group of 12-tone tuning. So if you want to start in familiar territory, you can find some notes that map well to your 12-tone keyboard. So in this particular one, it goes from unequal all the way to equal. So here down at the bottom, the chords are quite equal. And at the top, they're very unequal, more harmonically related. And that's something you can explore in great detail later. And then templates are where you want to go if you want to start with a blank slate, and we'll go into that more in detail later as well. So just a general overview of how this is all structured and laid out. Now you can see at the top, there's as I said, there's the active scale window, and the colored notes are the notes that are currently mapped to your keyboard. The color gradient gives you a sense of where the notes fall in the octave. And here at the bottom are 12-tone equal temperament tick marks. So you can see where the notes are in relationship to standard 12 EDO tuning or 12 ET tuning. So you can see this note here is a little bit sharper. This note's a little bit flatter. And so on. You can get so this is to give you a map of some familiar territory, to give you a point of reference. Now, if you notice, there's these colored lines, but then there's also these gray lines. These are the gray lines that are representative of the tuning out of which the scale is derived. So in Infinitone DMT, we have two primary structures. There's a tuning and a scale. Now, when we refer to scale, we're referring in this case to a group of notes of any size. So if you want to see the tuning from which it's derived, then we go over here to the tuning section and we can click unlock. And the reason why it's locked is because if you alter anything here, it will alter anything over here. So here we have the Harmonic Generator, and it's creating a tuning of 256 notes. Now, if we want to see all of those notes, we just click right here, and you can see every single note becomes active, and you can play all the fine little microtones in between each of these steps. So this is what it looks like when they're all active, but then you can click none, and they become all inactive. The way this is structured is each preset can have 4 individual tunings, 4 individual master tunings, A, B, C, and D. Now, if we want to change the tuning, then we go down here, the drop-down method, and we can select a different kind of tuning. So here, we're going to select equal tuning. Now you notice that when I did that, everything disappeared. That's because everything over here is derived from over here. So if we change what's over here, it changes what's here in the scale viewer. Now we're sort of at a blank slate again. And the way this works is each scale slot here is connected to one of the tunings over here. So if we click on this first scale slot here and we want to activate it, we just go here to the main inspector at the top and we click A. Now that will connect it with tuning A. Now we can create, this is the equal tuning, so we can create equal divisions of the repeat ratio. Let's just create 12 for their standard 12 EDO. Now you can see all the gray lines here. That means that they're inactive. If we want to make them active, just click all. And now if we want to have a second tuning, we can go down here and click the second one and choose which tuning that we want. Let's say in tuning B, let's do a harmonic tuning. And let's put also in 12 harmonics. And then we click here, tuning B, and attach it to that. Now you can see those notes appear up here. We can click all to include them. Now if we want to make a scale out of that, which would be a subset of the master set of the tuning, then we can right-click on any of these notes to activate or deactivate them. So let's create a little scale by deselecting a few of these notes here. Then if you want to go further, you can either, if you want the next scale slot to be derived from A, you can choose that, or B, you can choose that, or even C, and so on and so forth. You can see here which scale it's connected to. There's a letter, and up here it also comes up in the main inspector. So now each of these individual scales, or subsets of the master tuning, has its own particular parameters which you can use to customize it. First of all, the parameters are which notes are included, and then also the position of the scale. So you can, if you want to change the position, you go up here and you can move it anywhere here in the scale viewer, up and down. And then comes the mode, and the mode just simply rotates the scale . And so on and so forth. So that gives you a way of getting a lot of musical value out of just a few musical notes. Put that back at 1. Now here's the stretch function, and what that does is that stretches the whole tuning up and down. So that's no stretch. That's stretching it quite a lot. It's like putting the tuning on a rubber band. And you can also go in the reverse direction too. You get really creative with that. With these sliders, you can click the command button and slide them in a much finer degree of precision. Now next comes the key, and that's the key onto which the fundamental or tonic is mapped. And here, the default is middle C, which is C3. And you can change that to whatever you want. So now I'm playing everything on D flat 3, and it sounds the same. Now D3. It's all exactly the same. I'm just changing which key it's starting. And here's the fundamental frequency. In this case, it's middle C, and you can always just double click to get back to middle C, but you can put it wherever you want. So let's double click here to get back to the center. Let's change the stretch here again. You can slide that wherever you want. And you can also transpose by any ratio. There's common ratios here and ratios within the tuning. That's perhaps for more advanced use of creating chord progressions. And we'll discuss that in further videos, how that works. And then here's the invert. So it takes the intervals going upward direction and puts them in a downward direction. That turns essentially a harmonic scale into a subharmonic scale and vice versa. Now here is the note inspector. This is the scale inspector up here, and here's the note inspector. And you can see which ratio is currently selected here, and you can select the ratios up here in the scale viewer just by clicking on them, and you see the triangle. Wherever the triangle is, that's what comes up in the note focus. Or you can do it down here with this navigation arrows. The single arrow goes step by step to the tuning intervals, and the double arrow goes to the scale intervals. And you can also include and exclude intervals here. Now you'll notice that there are some features here which are disabled. And to enable them, you have to turn the tuning from a generated tuning to a custom tuning. And so we can do that by just clicking on Make Custom here. And now you have some special features unlocked, such as being able to just click on a note and grab it. So we've clicked on this note here, which is the perfect fifth. And you can slide it wherever you want. You can do that with any of the notes. Let's slide this one. So you can customize any of the scales any way you want. You can also transpose the notes by any ratio and swap the notes here with the adjacent ratio. At the top here, we have an advanced view. And there you can see all of the currently active ratios in the tuning and of the scale. And you can get information about the input and the output. And you can choose which format you wish to view them in and from which ratio the intervals are calculated. This is called advanced view for a reason, and a lot of this material is for more advanced users who are interested in knowing the ratios. That can come with time. But don't worry about that at the beginning if you're just getting started. At the beginning, you can just explore the scales and play by ear. So that concludes the basic tour of the main section of Infinitone DMT. Just to review, there's the tuning section here, and you can choose a variety of tuning methods from which any one of these 64 scale slots can be derived. You can modify any of the scale slots with the scale inspector, and you can modify any of the notes with the note inspector if you make it a custom tuning. Now here at the bottom is the morph section. And we will explore that in much more detail later on. But just for a quick experience of that, we'll show one more feature here, and that is a copy and paste. So here is tuning B, and what we're going to do is we want to copy and paste it. So here is tuning A. We're going to connect the scale slot with tuning B. Now we're going to copy this here and then select the next scale slot and paste it. Now there's two options. One is to translate it to whatever the current notes are, and one is to overwrite it. So if I were to copy this into scale slot A and overwrite it, it would totally change the tuning and overwrite what is currently there. Now if I want to go back and have equal again, and I want to translate it, then it's going to give me the approximation of those notes in the new tuning. So here I have a harmonic tuning. Now it approximates that same scale in 12 EDO. And now I can do a similar thing. Now I'm just going to copy and paste it to get a duplicate of it. Now I want to, let's change one of the modes here, and let's transpose it up by a perfect fifth. Transpose. You see the fundamentals changing. now we have two different chords here, and now let's morph between them. So we have, let's just choose scale slot 2 and scale slot 3 and morph. This is the effects section down here at the bottom. Beating. Change the rate of the beating. And detuning. We can add some random detuning. Make it a little wild. With fixed, the detuning will always remain the same. When it's unfixed, it's going to change every time that you play within this range selected here. So it can potentially humanize the playing a little bit. Now, let's go over some of the settings. At the very top here, there's the preset settings, and at the bottom there's the global settings. So the preset apply just to the currently loaded preset in the individual instance of the UI, and the global settings apply to everything. So at the very top is the pitch bend range. We've talked about that extensively in other videos. We're not going to go into that now, but -1 pitch bend range means it will default to the global pitch bend range at the bottom. Otherwise, you can put in whatever pitch bend range you need to match your synth. And here's some MPE settings. We're not going to go into that now of what that all means. If you want to use MTS ESP, then you just select that. This describes how notes are handled if you're morphing the tuning when notes are currently active. And here is the keyboard mapping. So if you want to change the notes from being mapped to all keys as it is here, you can open up one of the default mappings, select all, black keys only or white keys only. And in the future, we're going to go into much more detail about this tool here. It's a very, very powerful keyboard mapping tool. You can do polyphonic tunings. You can do custom remappings. The possibilities are endless. In the global settings here, there's the user path for where your personal presets are saved, and the user path where you can load Scala files, which is possible in the custom section. And the global pitch bend range, and if you want to send MTS tuning dumps, there's possibility to do that there also. And here at the top, let's go look at the preset section one more time. You can save tunings, you can save them as, which means you can put a different title on them. And in this current version of Infinitone DMT, there's not full undo capability. There's partial. So it's very important that you regularly save your own presets so that if you find something that you like, that you save it. Because if something happens and you change a parameter that can alter your tunings, it might not be possible to get them back at this current time. So it's important to regularly save as. And if you want to revert to a saved version of the tuning, if we want to go back to where we started here, so we haven't saved this, we just click reload, and it'll go back to that original preset which we had. And if you want to save your current scale as a Scala file, that's possible here. And last but not least is the stop all button. If there's any stuck notes, then you can click this. And that stops. Oh, and double last but not least, here in the at the top of the active scale viewer, there's something called display primes. This is an advanced feature. If you want to see the prime content of the scale represented by colors, then you can do that. The top here is the numerator and the bottom is the denominator. And all of the colors here, you can see which connects to which prime. But that's a very advanced feature, so if you're just beginning, not to worry. So that is it, I believe, for now. Stay tuned for future videos, and we'll go over all of this in much, much more detail. But for now, main suggestion is just to dive in and have fun, and don't worry about how all the stuff works. Just try and discover some new tunings that you really resonate with and make some music with them. And in general, all of these parameters, every single one of them, can be automated manually or automatically with your DAW or your controller. And that can be done through your DAW by connecting the parameters to your controller or to the automation lanes. But that's not something we're going to go into at the moment. That's for a future video. But just so you know, if you want to experiment with that, then by all means, go ahead. So that's it for now. We'll see you next time.